So this is the first lesson of 3 where we are going to scaffold our way into dividing decimals. So the first lesson is going to be dividing whole numbers, which should be a review of elementary school. The second lesson is going to be dividing decimals by whole numbers, and then the third lesson is going to be dividing decimals. Okay, so again, this should be review, so I'm not going to go terribly slow, but nonetheless we are going to review. So I can determine the quotient of 2 whole numbers. Okay, so just for some quick vocab review, we have some 3 main vocabulary words in division. We have the dividend, which is the number you're dividing into, and this is going to be the number on the inside of the division bracket. We have the divisor, which is the number that you're dividing by, and this is the number that's on the outside of the division bracket. And then we have the quotient, which is the answer to a division problem. And once you solve it, this is going to be the number that is on the top of the division bracket. As with a lot of things in math, there are acronyms that you can use to remember, how to solve a problem. So one of the popular acronyms that you can use to remember how to divide is something called the division family. So when you divide, there are multiple steps for long division. There's divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, and then repeat if necessary. And because there's a lot of steps, there's a little saying or a little poem that you can use to remember, which is Daddy, Mama, Sister, Brother, Rufus, which stands for divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, repeat. And you'll see that at the top of each slide. If that's not useful to you, or if you want to make up a different one, that's perfectly fine, but it's there as a tool for you as well. All right, so we're going to start off by doing 2-digit by 1-digit. You're going to see problems written in this fashion most of the time. And then in order to set up a long division problem, you're going to have to determine which number goes inside the bracket and which number goes outside the bracket. So the first number is the number that always goes inside of the division bracket. So 57 divided by 3 is rewritten as the 57 inside the division bracket with the 3 on the outside. All right, speaking of which, let's go ahead and solve that problem. So what you ask yourself first is how many times does this outside number 3 go into the first number, 5? 3 goes into 5 one time. So that's divide, then we multiply back. 3 times 1 is 3. Okay, so I just divided and then I multiplied. Now I'm going to subtract. 5 minus 3 is 2. Now I'm going to bring down the 7. And now I'm going to repeat. 3 goes into 27. How many times? Well, it goes in 9 times perfectly. And then 3 times 9 is 27. I'm going to subtract, and I do not have anything else to bring down, and my remainder is 0, so I stop right there, and my final answer is 19. All right, so you go ahead and try these two. All right, go ahead and hit pause if you are not done, and if you are done, we'll go ahead and compare answers. So the first one, your answer should be 42, and for the second one, your answer should be 16. I want to take this take a moment here to say that I know a lot of times in elementary school they teach the hangman method of division. And while the hangman method usually works fine for, or will work fine for whole numbers, divided by whole numbers, it does not work when we get to dividing decimals, which is why you do need to learn the long division way of division. So if you are not familiar with this way, you do need to become familiar with this way, because when we divide decimals here in not too long, this is the way that we have to do it. All right, let's go ahead and do 3-digit by 1-digit. So same process. How many times does 4 go into 1? 0. Subtract. 1 minus 0 is 1. Bring down and repeat. How many times does 4 go into 11? 2. 2 times 4 is 8. 11 minus 8 is 3. Bring down the 2. How many times does, 4 go into 32? 8. 8 times 4 is 32. 0. Nothing else to bring down. My final answer is 28. All right, go ahead and you try these two. All right, go ahead and pause if you are not done, and if you are done, we'll go ahead and go over it. So for the first one, you should have gotten 32, and for the second one, 35. Not much different from the one that we just did together. And again, if you did get a different answer, please go ahead and compare what we got. Now, the really cool thing with division that's different from multiplication is there's really only one way to do it. So your work and my work should really match each other to a T. All right, now 3-digit by 2-digit, same process, but maybe just a little bit more complicated. Now we have two numbers on the outside, or 2-digit number, I'm sorry, on the outside. So how many times does 16 go into 6? 0. 0 times 16 is 0. 6 minus 0 is 6. Bring down the 7. How many times does 16 go into 67? So you're going to have to sort of do a trial and error over here. Well, I know it's more than 16 times 1 and 2, so I'm going to try 16 times 3. That's going to be 48. Let's try 16 times 4. That's 64. I think that's close. So I'm going to do 4, 64. And then that's subtraction. 67 minus 64 is 3. Bring down the 2. And 16 goes into 32 twice. 2 times 16 is 32 with a 0 remainder. And so my answer is 42. So the only difference is that you're taking a larger number and putting it into the division bracket over here. All right, so you go ahead and try those two. All right, if you are not done, go ahead and hit pause, and if you are done, we can go over it. So for the first one, the answer was 17, and again, guys, with division, our work should be identical, so see where you went wrong. It's not like multiplication where you can sort of put one number here, one number there, so our work should be identical. And for the second one, your answer should be 43. Now with these 2-digit ones, it's going to require you to do a little bit of multiplication on the side. So you can see here with mine, I did a little multiplication on the side myself. So please don't be lazy. Take that extra step and go ahead and do that extra multiplication on the side. All right, using zeros as placeholders in a quotient. This is very important. This is a place where many people get tripped up in terms of division. So watch carefully. So 321 divided by 3. So how many times does 3 go into 3? Once. So 3 times 3, 3. Okay? 0. Bring down the 2. 3 goes into 2 how many times? 0. Make sure you put that 0 up there. Don't just bring down the 1 and move on. Okay? Put a 0. Bring down the 2, bring down the 1. Now, how many times does 3 go into 21? 7. 0. Okay, so your answer here is 107. Okay, now because these are so tricky, I'm actually going to do these with you. If you want to do them on your own, just go ahead and put the video on mute. All right, so how many times does 12 go into 3? 0. Okay, so 3 minus 0 is 3, and bring down the 6. How many times does 12 go into 36? 3 times. So 3 times 12 is 36. 36 minus 36 is 0. Bring down the 4. How many times does 12 go into 4? 0. 4 minus 0 is 4. Bring down the 8. How many times does 12 go into 48? 4 times. And then 4 times 12 is 48. So the answer here is 304. It's just making sure that you are super, super, super clear on every single step. Let's go ahead and do this one. 4 goes into 4 one time. 1 times 4 is 4. 4 minus 4 is 0. Bring down the 2. 4 goes into 2 0 times. 0 times 4 is 0. 2 minus 0 is 2. Bring down the 4. 4 goes into 24 6 times. 6 times 4 is 24. 24 minus 24 is 0. So my final answer is 106 for that one. All right, that is the end of dividing whole numbers by whole numbers. Next up, we'll be dividing decimals by whole numbers. So make sure you have down whole numbers by whole numbers before we move on.